Well, welcome back, everybody, or glad we tuned into that press conference. Life on another planet, no big deal. It's fine. Let's get back to this. Thank you very much to L3Harris for your generous sponsorship of the event. We truly appreciate it. So, shifting gears into our next session, we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about the transformative impact AI is having in the development of space systems. This panel will explore how AI is revolutionizing hardware design, fabrication processes, testing, software coding, etc. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan McAllister. He's Senior Director and Transformation Architect at SAIC. Jonathan, take it away.
Hey, thanks. Oh.
Just make sure it's on and then keep it on.
Yep. Sorry.
Thanks, Jim. I'm Jonathan McAllister, as indicated, with SAIC. We're a 25,000 employee mission integrator around the DoD and NASA civil space. Welcome. I hope everyone, I feel we're the last day, the last talk, and at least some of you stayed, right? So all the tables aren't empty. To try to get you to stay the whole time if we're too boring. For those who ask questions at the end, we have swag to give away to those of you who have questions for us, and that helps draw a crowd. So first, I want to thank the American Astronautical Society for hosting this event. It's been an amazing event with amazing speakers. Thank Jim, who's been great at coordinating. Thank him. And then I wanted to thank, just by name, I think everyone, I don't know if you're aware, there are volunteers out here who are actually volunteering their time to support this operation. That includes Barbara, two Emilys, Emily and Emily, Alex, Anita, Marta, and Jules. So thank them for all the work. If you give them a round of applause. These events are complex to put on and hard to put on. So, behind the scenes work, a lot of it happens, and we just want to say that we appreciate that as nerds who get to come up here and just talk for 30 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves and kind of give a brief my thoughts on what's here. I would just say, kind of off script a little bit, this room is amazing, right? Like, I've been here for 3 days, and we're following people who work on weapons grade plutonium refinement, exploring other planets. So we're humbled by all the knowledge that's in this room. I know the people setting these tables are a key part of the industry. So what I'll say is thanks for even listening to us. But as you've heard across the past few days, the industry's facing challenges on many fronts, whether that is challenges related to budget, right, which is the obvious and obtuse elephant in the room, but other challenges, right? Do more with less. What's your digital engineering ecosystem, cybersecurity posture, right? These aren't things that engineers like to talk about. What is this thing called AI that's encroaching on us, right? Where is it pushing our engineering teams? Is my engineer or an engineer in my peer group currently using an open platform to ask questions about a system that I'd rather they didn't do that on, because somebody on the other side of the ocean is also using that same system? So these are things we're going to talk about today and see how that goes. So with that, again, I'm Jonathan with SAIC, and I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. Pete?
All right, so I'm Pete Jones. I'm engineering manager over at the Moog Space and Defense Group. I've been in and around the industry for about 28, 30 years. You'd probably be surprised to find I really don't work in the digital domain. I'm actually a mechanical engineer. But I've seen everything all the way from development on through to production. So why am I here, right? If I don't work in the digital domain, what is it that I'm here for? Well, maybe to speak a little bit about my journey with AI. I'll tell you that I started out as a bit of a skeptic of AI. Not so much skepticism from the standpoint of it's an amazing thing and it can do amazing things. More along the lines of, okay, so it's a tool that's out there and it's another place to get easy answers. So how did I grow from having that point of view to really trying to promote it within the organization and frankly out in the world? So yeah, I did grow from a perspective of skepticism to optimism, and there's probably just a couple points that I'd like to make to build off of. So first off, we've got tools that are out there, and I see different people getting engaged with the tools, And some people are turned off by the fact that, you know, it's not perfect. Well, okay, so as you engage with these tools, just because it's not perfect doesn't mean it's not going to be useful, right? You know, there's everyday use cases. You've got the chat GPTs out in the world that are out there, and they will give you an answer for almost anything you ask. In fact, I don't know that I've ever heard it come back with a note that says, I don't know. And as we develop the specialized tools that are really going to be advancing the work that we do, like there's a learning curve that you're going to want to engage in as you're doing that. But with all of that, and I feel like I'm going to be kind of paraphrasing some of Colonel Stark, his points yesterday as I go through this. But there's things that you need to be mindful of as you're using tools, and Jonathan broached one of them just a moment ago. You know, and I don't know that everybody really appreciates the fact that if you have a tool that's out there in the world, that frankly, there's going to be people who they might not use it for the information that you're putting out there appropriately. So as you engage in it, and if you're doing it within the organization that you're working in, it's really important to educate people on its strengths and limitations. And those limitations are things like, you know, your company's IP and, you know, your customer data and really OPSEC concerns, right? And above and beyond that, you know, there's considerations on ethics, right? You know, so what do I mean by ethics? You know, there's domains that you know, you can ask it, and if you were to ask it about HR questions or things like that, is that really the right thing to be using it for, or should you just trust the data that comes back to you? Additionally, you know, we call it artificial intelligence, but how intelligent is it really? You know, when people ask me about it, you know, I generally try to use the term overeager assistant. Yeah, and really, again, this gets back to it will give you an answer no matter what you ask it. But you've got to be critical, and it's got to remain, you know, especially with the work that we do, it's got to remain human-centered, and we have to maintain responsibility for the work that we do. So looking ahead, you know, it's impressive now, and honestly, it's just going to get better. And then just to kind of move on quickly, I'll talk about what we're doing at Moog with AI. You know, we're invested in it. We're going to continue to invest in it, and we've got a two-pronged approach as we're doing it. One is to you know, bring AI to the masses, but do it in a safe manner. So what is a safe manner? So we've got an internal tool that we've rolled out to the organization. You know, it's safe. It works within our own four digital walls, so to speak. And we consider things like managing our IP, managing our customers' data, really being concerned about, you know, operational security items. So we have a tool that we've developed that we can use internally and feel confident with. And on top of that, we're educating the people that want to use it, you know, where its strengths and weaknesses are and how to use it appropriately. And then in addition to that, we have some purpose-built tools. And I think this is where maybe the major advancements in productivity might be coming from. And if you can imagine, as people get engaged with AI, there's a million ideas that are going to come to the forefront. And not every idea is something that you're going to be able to chase. So in your organizations, as you do this, really what you want to do is you want to be thinking about how you're going to down select that, and make sure that it's feasible and that it's going to be a value add to the organization. So,
All right, thanks, Pete. So thank you for that. That's a great intro to what his organization is doing, and Pete can add a lot of value here to this conversation. We all had dinner last night, by the way, and we had a dry run of this event before. And when we had dinner, just the dialogue that naturally evolved was amazing, right? And I think it has applicability to people who actually do design reviews in this room, right? And someone who's engaged and actually knows what Fusion 360 is, which is most of this room, right? So I think this is going to be exciting, and thank you, Pete. So Dr. Otis, you want to do a quick intro and just a quick thing on kind of your view of AI?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So hello, I'm Richard Otis, Vice President of Automated Satellite Design at Proteus Space. If you're not familiar with Proteus, we're a Los Angeles-based startup company focused on speed and reliability in the design, manufacture, and operation of payload-tailored custom satellite buses. We recently completed flight qualification of our first satellite, integrated all those payloads. We went from a clean sheet design to a fully integrated flight qualified satellite in 8 months, which we think is a record. And that satellite will launch on SpaceX Transporter 15 in October. So we're very excited about that. And the way we achieve this milestone is through the use of our proprietary AI-enabled digital engineering platform that we call Mercury. And what that system does is enable us to shift left on a whole swath of the satellite systems engineering process and bring that in at having a very high level of fidelity, even at the concept stage. And so we're happy to talk a little bit about the role that we see AI playing in enabling that capability and also in others. A little bit more about me. Prior to Proteus, I was at NASA JPL for 8 years, where I worked advanced technology development. Very happy to see NASA Tech Transfer represented here and all the fantastic work that's continuing to go on related to that. So while I was at JPL, I was the lead to develop an automated materials design software system that later our team received recognition from NASA JPL as the Software of the Year, which was pretty cool to get that kind of recognition. And so when Proteus was started and really ramping up, we thought to bring that kind of capability and sensibility to satellite systems. And so that has been that's been our focus now since we were founded. So we're very excited about that, and interested also if there are folks that have payloads you're trying to get to orbit and trying to do it quickly, please feel free to reach out on that. In terms of the role that we see for AI, I think the way to think about that is generative AI systems. They're a computer program, but they're a new type of computer program, and they're one that is much more tolerant of ambiguity and a lack of structure than computer programs were traditionally. But in a sense, they're an evolution of the direction that computing has already taken, where we're moving to ever greater levels of abstraction as we automate and command compute systems to do things. I saw a tweet not long after ChatGPT had really taken off, where someone had said, "Hey, have you heard about the hot new programming language? It's English." And so now this idea that you have this capability to command and instruct systems with natural language, and those systems have an ability to reason and make inferences and extract user intent in a way that we could not previously. The flip side of that is, all of the caveats about designing reliable and accurate compute-based systems still apply. We still need to have an ability to check the quality of these systems. We need to have systems that have some degree of determinism or a manageable and quantified amount of non-determinism, because in the case of satellite systems engineering, I mean, these are highly quantitative processes. Things must be anchored to physics. They must return results as a whole that are consistent between one another. So, when I was at JPL, I was very focused on numerical methods, and across all the different systems that we were looking at, if things didn't agree out to 6 figures, we would file a bug, right? And we take, at Proteus, we take that same kind of approach in terms of the design of these systems. Regardless of the role of AI in those systems, which we see as essential, but at the same time, it has to be managed and like any other component of your system, and that includes also the human components. I think I have a little bit more to say about that, but I don't want to preempt the John's questioning too much, so I think I'll just leave it there for now.
All right, thank you, Dr. Otis. We will now turn it over to, also from SAIC, as myself, Matt Peterson, our Vice President, one of the smartest guys I know, to be honest with you, right? And soon to be Dr. Peterson. So, Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Matt Peterson. I'll just start off with saying NASA and the work that NASA does has really been inspirational for me and motivating and empowering for me throughout my career. Shuttle Discovery returned to flight. I was in 6th grade after the Challenger disaster when the Space Shuttle Discovery returned to flight. I was in 6th grade is what motivated me to be an engineer and study, determine my trajectory through high school and college. One of my first jobs out of school was working up at the NASA Wallops Flight Facility doing sounding rockets development. Was a dream job for me, really formulative for me in my early career. Today I'm in our strategist organization. I focus on customer problems and really understanding the root of the matter of our customers' biggest challenges, and then how technology can be brought to bear to solve those and rapidly iterate with them. Just really briefly, my thoughts around AI and particularly large language models. AI is a big topic, right? It's a big basket. There's a lot of different tools that are in there. The discussion to date and the attention and the buzz is really around these large language models and the chat interface, right? That everybody's really super interested in. And to me, my viewpoint on it is it's really the democratization, kind of like what Richard's saying. I view it as the democratization of computer science and the access to the computer. So computers have been around a long time. You look at the human-machine team achieving an objective, there's always been this huge barrier with the user interface in getting things done, right? And that barrier used to be gigantic and originally with punch cards, right? Stuff that I don't know about. I wasn't even there when I was learning. Going through school, right? Punch card interface, and then it got a lot better and easier with the mouse and the Macintosh, the graphical user interface, and all that type of stuff. And the user interface has gotten considerably better through the years. But really, what large language models and things like ChatGPT or these different chat solutions give us is a more intuitive human type interface that's really opening up the potential for the human machine team to get more things done. And it does that. One of the ways is that it's more intuitive, and it means that a greater degree of people, accessibility wise, than what traditionally are involved in computer science are going to be able to get involved. And so there's a huge potential. So despite what you read, AI is not coming to get your job, right? It's going to help you do your job a lot faster. The country as a whole needs a huge boost in productivity, and AI is going to be what's going to get us there over the next 10 years.
All right, thank you, Matt. So I'll just share with you a little bit about this panel. Again, thanks for your intros. This panel, we talked last night. I talked to Matt a little bit. Our goal isn't to talk at you, right? Our goal is to hopefully everyone in this room who's already brilliant take something valuable away from this talk, right? So the questions we're going to ask are aimed at that. So we've tried to say, if we were in the audience, what would we want to hear if I own a small business startup, right, or an 8A or a women-owned small business, or if I'm at Raytheon, right, our guest here in the front, right? What do I want to hear that I can learn from my industry peers? So we're going to run through some questions like that. Just to get kind of a feel for the audience, plus it's a litmus test of how good we're doing if people are looking or not, if they're looking up or looking at phones. How many of you are exploring AI? I'm just messing with you. How many of you are exploring AI in your organizations now? All right. How many of those people, or how many of all of you feel like it's a risky endeavor, and I just mean risk in the big capital R way? You don't think it's not? Okay, so not everyone thinks it's risky. Interesting. We have a process question here in a minute. But we're kind of, these questions are kind of meat and potatoes, right? We could be academic up here all day long and talk about the origins of neural networks, and you know, Dr. Otis is amazing with some of this stuff, right? Or we can talk about the stuff that actually gets business done. If you can't tell, I'm a program manager for SAIC, so I run real programs, real people, real staff. You know, we deliver mission outcomes, so that's my viewpoint on these things. So these questions will kind of be in that nature. At the end, again, in the interest of you guys getting something out of this that's valuable to you, we are going to leave some time at the end for you to ask real questions. And again, I do have a little swag from the university for that to try to incite that. So one of the things that kind of came up is, as we spoke, I'm going to jump straight to the risk question, right? Because we had a great conversation, so we've kind of rearranged our questions a little bit. You know, as DevOps and these types of tools in the there's an analog, right? As DevOps came into the IT community, those who adopted DevOps early were viewed as smart, right? They were business savvy, right? But ultimately now, years later, in cloud environments, DevOps is just the way we do business, right? It's the way most software development shops work. No one's smart for using DevOps. It's the trade that we practice, right? Now we've all learned it, so no one gets to be smart anymore. We think that there's some type of analog to this model in the industry where it's came out, but instead, unlike DevOps, there's significantly more risks associated with it. So for instance, Dr. Otis, who, and I hope you'll speak to this, raised last night, if you're a contracts officer at a federal agency, or you're a contracts person at a small startup doing B2B for space, and someone's going to carry your payload on a commercial flight, and you're going to share documents out of your engineering set or subsets of documents or drawings, how do you ensure that your subcontractors are not using AI in a way that could cause data leakage? This is just one of the risks that Dr. Otis and the team brought up last night. I hope, show of hands, is that an interesting question for you guys? Yeah, some of you? Okay. So can we speak just a little bit about what you see as risks in a practical way to organizations who are trying to adopt AI, knowing that in this room are larges, right, as well as startups, as well as students who are thinking about what their first company looks like. Jerns, you want to go ahead?
Checking to make sure this is working. Okay, so the risks, I think I alluded to at least a few of them a little bit earlier. You talk about data management of your own IP and your customers' data, right? And where you're using the tools. I think that is a huge risk with the type of work that we do. You know, and not everybody out there in the world is going to be kind and interested in a positive way about the information that we're using. So as we roll out these tools, we really need to consider the risk of where that information is going. And the tools that are out there, they are amazing, but you've got to recognize it's out there in the cloud. And once you put it out there, anybody is going to be able to, in some fashion, be able to access that, right? And then secondarily, you know, I think maybe in a different sense, one of the risks I see is in the adoption of people being too trusting or not trusting enough, right? So how do you deal with that? You have to have infrastructure in place, and you have to educate the people who are going to be utilizing these tools so that they can use them effectively and know that it's going to be a safe place to work.
All right, thanks, Pete. That's great input. I will just tell you this question originates. I came from the IT heavy side of the house, software releases, software development, that sort of stuff, embedded systems. And I can tell you that some of my peers in the computer science kind of mindset, right, they're not practically deploying apps, right, that do comms, right, they're computer science thinkers, are like, well, AI is different, right? And all I come back to is, you know, from my 20s to my 30s, I made a lot of house payments patching vulnerabilities that the software developers said didn't exist, right? And those vulnerabilities often were found by people in zero-day exploits that we didn't want to find that vulnerability, and it was too late, right? Some damage had been done before my job that night at 3 a.m. to patch some server, which is what my job was, right? Had to be dealt with. So when we talk about these risks, I will just warn you, in the communities at least that I float around, there are people who will poo-poo this idea, right? And say, well, this is different, right? That's what a lot of software developers said for years. And if you go look at a CISA vulnerabilities report for traditional software, I personally think there's an analog. So, Dr. Otis?
Sure. Yeah. In terms of risks, so if we want to talk about an AI agent for a moment, so kind of taking a step beyond just like a chat-based interface, but talk about a system based on AI that's then taking action on your behalf, there's really three elements to it that you have to think about from a risk perspective. First is the agent has access to your private data, because otherwise how else could it have the relevant context that it needs? The second is it has exposure to untrusted information, right? So these systems go out and you may be feeding it input from various sources that you either partially or don't fully trust or you don't trust at all. And the third is the ability to communicate with the outside world, right? So access to the internet. So Simon Willison calls this the lethal trifecta, for AI agents in particular. And so that doesn't necessarily make it a showstopper to be able to incorporate these even for sensitive applications. But what it does mean is your guardrails need to be in place that address all three of those elements in turn in some kind of way. I would say, about the question about contract officers, and so starting to see language, not really new obligations, but just reminding people, calling out AI systems in particular that say, hey, don't put our proprietary information into a public chat interface that says they're going to use this information to train, because that breaches the NDA, which is true whether it's spelled out or not. But now they're starting to say it explicitly. And one element of risk, I would also encourage everyone to think about within their organizations is understand whether or not when you're using one of these LLM chat AI interfaces is whether or not your organization has a zero data retention agreement with the company providing you access to the LLM or not. Because if you don't, then you need to think about it from the perspective that everything you're putting in there could potentially be made public, at least in principle. And so, most of the frontier model providers now have the ability to get such an agreement in place, especially if you're in the public sector. But you have to be on the right tier of service to be getting that. And so that's if there was one thing I would say from a risk perspective to make sure that your organization is doing, especially folks that are working with information that's export controlled or ITAR, CUI, other things like that, that you're mindful of those obligations.
All right, thanks, Dr. Otis. Matt?
Yeah, just thoughts on risk real quick for you. First is I'd encourage you to really start small. If you're not using AI today or wherever you're at in your journey, a lot of people dive in and they try to tackle really big, complicated, or a series of tasks that require a series of steps. Personally, I made that mistake myself. You got ideas about doing something really grand, you feel all empowered. But what I've seen success in is really starting with small tasks, getting your confidence and demonstrating, being able to get that feedback. And along that, the big risk is validation, right? As with any model, you need to validate the results. You need to see the proof that what it provides matches what you wanted it to provide. And it's something we all neglect or downplay and don't prioritize during development. So really encourage everybody to emphasize validation, model validation at the end of your process to make sure that it works. And then the other one that I would just highlight, since we have a large number of students, is the education aspect. And we really need to, we need to figure out how we incorporate it within education, right? It's like the calculator in the 1970s, right? It's this super powerful tool. Is it really important that I don't know how to do long division, right? I don't know. I mean, these are things that we got to figure out. Or can I use the calculator on a test, right? Is it, when I was in school, I'd get my engineering paper out, I'd get a problem, I'd write the problem out, right? I'd write the governing equations. I would then do like 5 pages of derivations to get an answer on the last one, and I'd circle that, right? Because that's really all my professor was going to look at was the answer at the, and he had to find it really easily, right? But I had to do those 5 pages of derivations. Is those 5 pages of derivations useful? Is that helpful? Is that instruction? Is that Is that part of the educational process? Because I really think that the skills in the 21st century are really going to be around problem formulation, knowing how to set up the problem, and then evaluating your results, kind of back to that validation point.
All right, thank you, Matt. I think those are great answers. Super cool. So let's shift over to DE, digital engineering, model-based systems engineering. How many of you in the room are involved in MBSE in some aspect, or your orgs are? Whoa, surprisingly low number. No surprise that June answers that, right? right. So one of the funny things I think that happens is how many students are in the room? Can you students stand up for us real quick, just to recognize some of the great students that are here? I've talked to a ton of them. They're amazing. Right, so everybody, yes, please. So I've spoken with a number of these students. They're amazing. I would never want to interview against them in about 4 years. I would definitely lose that battle, I think. But these students are depending on us, just like we came up, for tools and workspaces, and particularly digital workspaces that are ready for them. Trusted digital workspaces for them to apply this just inspiring, to be honest with you, thoughts they have about the future of the space industry, the future of national security, the future of our environment, right? These students are full of ideas. I've talked to them, right? And we need to build a responsible digital ecosystem that is a force multiplier for them, right? Just like our people before us with slide rules, right? Things like Autodesk and those tools started to arrive, right, very early when green screens and VAX VMSs were still a thing, right? But CAD already existed, right? I think R11 was out around then, right, in the early 90s. I'm not old, by the way, right? But these students expect us to get them, we're the slide rule right now, right? What are we building for them with these tools as they emerge, right? Well, these gentlemen lead their organizations. This room is full of people who lead their organizations in this. How do we advise them? So my question to the panel is, in a digital ecosystem where you already have some amount of digital engineering, you have tool chains in place that are varying levels of maturity, right? You walk in one shop and they're fully immersive in a Siemens suite. You go into other places and, they got like a attached hard drive, right? But they're still super smart people, right? And in those orgs, often you'll have a disruptor or a champion, and we have this where I work, right? Who's like, hey, I was looking at this AI tool, and I tried two things with it. Or I wrote an agentic piece, like a hook into an agentic, to create an agentic setup, right? To do this thing that I do every day, to compare these two drawings that came up out of versions and find the differences. How would you advise orgs in this room and those students to prepare that digital ecosystem for these students, right? The next generation of slide rule, right? That they should kind of feed, right, and foster those people in the digital ecosystem, knowing that we just talked about risk, so we don't have to hash that out. But how would you encourage that, feed that, and what advice would you give to orgs who are in that process just like we are?
Okay, there we go. It's a really good question, and I think one of the places where AI is really obviously it's going to work is in digital workflows. So as we get engaged in things like MBSE and frankly anything where you can turn it into a digital workflow, it's something that you can teach it how to help us. So as far as building it, part of it is listening to the ideas that come in, right? I'd mentioned a little bit earlier, we've got an organization, we're invested in AI, and there are a lot of ideas that are coming our way. So how do we build it? I think the first thing that we do is we listen to the people who come up with good ideas, and we find a way to implement the ones that are going to help the organization be more efficient in the future.
All right, Dr. Otis.
Yeah, so what I would say when it comes to digital engineering and the ecosystem around that is I think the key is really about data. What we spend a lot of time, in the platform that we've developed for satellite design. We've found that we really have to spend a lot of time thinking about data, about the quality of data. We've dedicated a lot of resources to be able to do that. And the reason is because the data from the real world is what grounds these systems and makes them able to design, make inferences and predictions that actually comport with reality, not something that's like, well, this is kind of plausible. It's like, well, no, but it needs to actually be true in reality. And so, I think that regardless of whether you're talking about a system that is using agentic AI, or if it's a classical engineering system that uses methods that we've known about for decades, it's really about making sure that you have the right data that's available at the right time. And what we have found is, if that's true, if you've really done a good job curating your databases and the fabric that connects all the elements of your digital engineering system together, and you have the right data available at the right time everywhere in your process, that a lot of aspects of engineering that are understood to be hard become much easier, and in some cases even trivial. So I would say focus on the data.
Yeah, I would kind of add on that. In terms of digital engineering, there's this concept of the digital thread, which is the connection between different engineering domains. So requirements to systems models, to design models, over to simulation, right, to production and sustainment, right? That's the digital thread. And then, kind of our experience, and as we're using AI more and more, AI can almost be the next generation of that digital thread that happens really quickly and dynamically. I lead a team of 50 engineers, and what engineers love doing is designing and developing. What engineers hate doing is talking about it and explaining it in simple, easy to understand terms, right? And I spent 3 years banging my head against the wall trying to instill this culture and develop that capability, and it's fruitless, right? At the end of the day, I'll just tell you. However, in December of last year, we had the miracle idea of, why don't we just record them, take the transcript, process it, and it comes out, and guess what? Really easy to understand, simple human language that, just kind of circumnavigates the entire problem, right? And so for us, that was kind of an inspiration of how it can act as an agent between different domains, right? Mechanical engineers don't necessarily speak systems engineering. Interfacing with simulation could be hard. So I would just offer, maybe it's the next generation of the digital thread.
All right, thanks, Matt. All right, so to mix it up a little bit, again, heads up or heads down, right, how we're doing. I'd like to solicit at least one question from the audience. Can somebody go ahead and be brave and do that for us? All right. Oh, up front, you just wanted the magnet, right? Or you got to come get the magnet, right? Oh, we got two. Yeah, you get a magnet too, but start with you and we'll come back to her. No, we're going to take it. Go ahead.
Hi, Robert Fuller from Voyager Technologies. So I'm assuming the panel has worked with AI agents in any sort of business, engineering, project management system. I'd like to know what your experiences are, at least identifying what an issue or a potential workflow that you guys are enhancing, what the approach may be, and most importantly, what the testing and iteration refinement process looks like.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Robert. Doctor, just not to put you on the spot, but I think you might be able first out of the gate on this one.
Sure, I'm happy to answer that question a little bit. And I would say the use of agents within an organization, there are a lot of places. I already discussed a little bit about risks when I talked about the lethal trifecta earlier, so I won't belabor the point. But those risks continue to be present. But if you've got that mitigated correctly, there's all sorts of aspects of an enterprise that kind of have this cyber component that's connected also with the human component. And, where anywhere in an organization where you see there's ambiguity, lack of structure, there's an interface with an external organization where, that interface is not specified to a machine readable level of precision. And, generally speaking, they're not, and when I say that, what I mean is things like, PowerPoint slides, right, as a medium of exchange within engineering organizations, or sometimes, PDFs and things like this, that they contain structure, but that structure is not specified to a level of detail where a traditional computer program would be able to handle it, right? So, agentic systems really shine in those applications from what we've seen, their ability to process and work with that kind of information. And then, the flip side of what you asked, though, is okay, well, how do you test? How do I know that this stuff actually works? And, this is absolutely a challenge. And one aspect of it is there's a degree of non-determinism that exists in these systems. And by non-determinism, I mean you give them the same input, and do you always get the same output? Another aspect of it is if I slightly perturb the input, do I get a slight perturbation of the output? And the answer in both cases, in general, is no. There's a degree of non-predictability there. And the way to mitigate that is leveraging a lot of elements that we've already developed, in the software engineering field. So things like DevSecOps, continuous integration and continuous deployment, the integration and incorporation of human review, cross-agent checking for consistency, right? So if you have a non-deterministic system, you can sample from it multiple times, and you can also use independently developed systems and look and, am I getting a consistent answer? Those are some ways that you can mitigate the impact. The flip side of it is, I guess if I've already did the flip side, then I flipped back. I'm on the original side. But basically, your ability to get answers so much more quickly actually means you can reinvest a fraction of that time in terms of quality assurance. So that's the way we're thinking about it.
All right, thank you, Robert. I hope that answers. And the panelists are available afterwards for conversation out in the forum, obviously. I would just comment, one of the places I lurk around to kind of that workflow question, and I think you meant workflow both in the engineering domain, so digital engineering, as well as maybe out in just the normal workplace. Is that right? Unfortunately, our friends who are on the less scrupulous side of various businesses, right? The scammers out there that call your grandma and convince her to go get some gift cards at Best Buy, right? And scratch it off and read it. Sadly, they are some of the leaders in the use of workflows with AI. So if you go start snooping about, I'm not saying go to the dark web for those of you who are cleared, but I'm saying go just do some Googling. These people are using tools like N8N, which is an open source tool, right? They're plugging it into an agent. And then they're having it make decisions and basically very successfully executing. It's a force multiplier for them to conduct scams. If you're not familiar with this and you want to see how AI and agentic AI and how that combination with workflow tool sets can really enable a business in not a great way, start looking into some of that use. It's some of the stuff that we look at. And I say that a little facetiously. It is unfortunate that those tools are being brought to bear in that way. Conversely, if you want to defend against those tools in the gift card scenario, which again I'm a little facetious about, but is unfortunate, but so many people are sharpening that same sword against your cyber systems, right? And those are interesting places, Robert, just to snoop around. I'm not saying use those practices, but they've developed remarkably complex workflows that are very convincing that combine things like voice generation, right, for the call aspect of things, aggregated data to get a composite of who you are before the bot calls you, from various OSINT type data sources. So those are some places to look, and those are fun conversations to have with your friends. I should probably get different friends, but anyway, right? So okay, let's do. I think we had Raytheon had a question up front.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Dr. Janine Smith. I'm from Raytheon, of course. My dissertation actually involved a deep dive into the implications of AI. And what you touched on, Richard, was one of the themes that clearly emerged: garbage in, garbage out. But that brings me to just a quick, it may be more philosophical type question for you. As you're aware, Hinton, who's also known as the godfather of AI, is just terrified of it. And I just wanted to know your thoughts on the social implications of AI and how the average citizen feel on moving forward with it.
Okay, let's give that to Matt and to Pete. And just a time check, it's about 12:21, and we know we cannot preempt an astronaut. So we have 9 minutes to also have closing statements. Be aware.
Yeah, interesting corollary. I'd say it's almost like atomic power, right? There's a great potential for good and bad, right, depending on how it's used. And you need, we as a society just need to put good guard rules in place and approach it with good ethics and be mindful that there are going to be some pitfalls along the way.
Yeah, and maybe I'll pitch off on that a little bit. AI is here. The tools that we have are here, and there's really no escaping where they are. And how I think that as a society we can engage it. It's going to be used. People are going to use it no matter whether we want them to or not. But for people who are using it in their daily lives, make sure that they understand, where the information's going, who could be using it, and why it's important to, depending on what domain you're working in, to safeguard the work that you're doing.
Okay, that's great answers. Thank you, and thanks for the great question. And again, these folks will be outside. We're going to try to fit these in. We're at 12:22, so we're going to be tight. We'll start with her and come back to you if that's okay. So.
Hi, my name is Brooke Weborg. I am an AI and machine learning engineer here at NASA's Glenn Research Center. So I work with a lot of engineers and just our researchers in general, trying to do rapid prototyping and predictive maintenance, those sorts of problems, to try to help just enable them to solve these issues faster. So you guys talked about earlier mentioning data quality as necessary for really grounding these systems, and curating this data is just super important. What a common problem we face is just kind of requiring building AI tailored to specific problems, because we need good data. So a lot of the applications we work on, it's really expensive to generate that data. Often I talk to researchers and they're like, oh, I have tons of data. Well, 100 points of data is a lot because it was really expensive, right? So how can government, academia, and industry really come and work together to reduce the barriers to data sharing and really enabling these kinds of solutions that are data-driven? Thank you.
Okay. Matt, you want to take that one?
Sure. That's a big question. Off the cuff, I would say, maybe there are, I think recognition of the problem, right, or the challenge is important, number one. Number two, really, data is a currency going forward, and there's a value to it. And there's the potential for, what do you call them, consortiums, right, for people to get together and to share data, but for the benefit to be shared amongst all of them, right? And if you can get the right group of people together, I would think that there'd be a big value around that, around the data.
All right, thanks, Matt. I'll just throw my 2 cents in, even though it wasn't asked, but moderator privilege, right? So I do a lot of work at NOAA as well, right? So I see a lot of kind of this. We've invested a lot of money to remotely sense and collect this, L0 to L5 data, right, and put it somewhere. And to zoom down to your question, which is how do you get the right people in the room, is you have events like this, and we drop the facade of we all are the smartest, right? We drop the Pete, or not Pete, Dr. Otis said it last night. None of us are really experts in this yet, right? Because you can't be, because it's evolving so fast. So I think the short answer, my opinion, right, as someone who's at NOAA with seeing all this data, you got to get all these kind of people in the room, and you just got to have honest conversations. Be like, hey, did you do this? Did you do this? Right? And learn from each other and be humble about it. And then just be, again, this is the cyber part of me, be very risk aware, right? Because, June, the reason I know your name is I was amazed at your presentation, and I was like, oh gosh, I can't believe we're following these people, right? Hard act to follow, right? But the last thing that's going to happen, she has a lot of data too, right? The last thing she's going to do is let somebody like me show up, some lackey, and be like, hey, I was just going to plug this cool tool in. Me and Dr. Otis just built it, and we trust us. It's air-gapped and secure, right? So you have to be sensitive when you ask other people to come in to your church of data, well, the way I view it, right? This kind of holy house of data, that they're respectful of it, that they're conscious of your concerns, right? And that they're humble in your house, right? Your holy house of data. And I think that is for some of us, sometimes a little bit of a culture shift that we have to think about when we come to your data house, right? That, hey, we're going to come humbly. You're the SME on whatever this earth science data is, for instance, right? We're bringing a tool set, but you are going to talk 80% of the time, and we are going to listen 80% of the time. The problem with people who show up with tools to fix a problem a lot is they talk 80% of the time and then they're not there the other 20 because they never listen, right? But anyway, I hope that answers, and would love to hear more about your problem kind of after this. So, oh, and you got a magnet, by the way, right? Right. Yes, sir. We're closing in, so.
I'm Carmen Lapanzi. I'm a senior mechanical engineering student at Cleveland State University. I wanted to ask you guys your opinion on the evolution of AI in today's age, how you see it evolving in the next 1 year, 5 years, 10, 20, 50 years from now, what you think it'll look like, and what roadblocks are on the way of that evolution, such as the current ones: bad data input, data leakage, bad user interface. So just,
Hey,
yeah.
that is a great question. I couldn't have planned it better. We only have 2 minutes or 3 minutes left. So this is a good way for us to get our closeout thoughts and kind of a very dangerous question for someone to be predictive, right? But we're going to ask each of the panelists, I think your question is, where do you see this going in the next 10, 20 to 25 years? And these will also be closing thoughts from each of our panel members.
All right, so short answer here is, where is it going? I don't know that any of us can really put our finger on where it's going to be in 5, 10 years from now, but it's just going to continue to grow. It's an amazing tool today, right? And as we find different ways to use the general tools and the specific tools that we're generating now and in the future, like it's honestly, the sky's a limit. It's really only limited by human creativity, and then I'll even say at some point or another, maybe AI will have a level of creativity that'll help us as well.
All right, thanks, Dr. Curtis.
Yep. So I won't try to speculate out more than, like, let's say the next 5 years or so. But what I would say is, I think we're seeing right now that the rate of improvement of the frontier models and like the very zenith of what they can do, there seems to be leveling off a bit as we're kind of in this mode of waiting for the next big breakthrough, like transformers were, and the reinforcement learning and other aspects of that. But I do think what we're seeing right now is a rapid improvement in the efficiency of these models. And I think the next major thing that we're going to be seeing, well, we're already seeing, is basically a push to the edge of more of this of what we consider today frontier type capability that requires data centers worth of compute to be able to operate. We're going to see that move towards the edge, both on the ground and on orbit. I think that's where it's headed.
Yeah, similarly, we like to think of progress as a linear line. It's really not. It comes in fits and starts. With the established techniques that are out there today, I agree. It seems like we're kind of plateauing, and it's one of the reasons maybe I'm philosophically I'm not hugely worried about like artificial general intelligence or some super AI god, right? It just doesn't seem to be getting there with the tools we have in place, and that's probably because the tools that we have in place are trained on literally all of the information in the world, right? So unless we can get another world's worth of information, which is where NASA is going to come in, right? All new worlds of information. You're right. We're not going to be able to train bigger, badder bots, right, to go do this. So similarly, I would say I think we are the progress is really going to be in the application, the use, and the efficiency of AI.
All right. Thank you, Matt. We are at a hard stop at 12:30. So, Jim, if you want to come up. Thank everyone for listening. I hope this was useful. All these people will be out in the lobby for a bit, available for conversations. I will close with this. I was supposed to do this whole closing thing, but I will rather the questions. Brooke, I think Brooke's question, I'll just tell you as a program manager who runs programs for our company, right? And I try to deliver mission outcomes for our customers. Brooke's question is the best question. They're all great, by the way. But Brooke's question is the best question. These are hard problems we are facing. No one in this room needs educated on that or needs little old me to tell you that, right? But we've got to get in a room. We've got to be together. We've got to drop the flare, right? And we got to have a real conversation about what are you doing? What are you doing? How do we help each other, right? And how do we enable those young professionals who stood up in the back to have the next set of tools, right? Our people gave us CAD instead of slide rules, right? How do we make sure they have the next gen of tools in the next 20 to, what'd you say, 10 to 25 years that they need to solve these hard problems here on Earth, right? As well as for exploration, right? Thank you very much for listening to us. We appreciate it. Oh, and don't forget to come get some magnets.
Yeah, thank you to this panel for bringing the energy, bringing some really great items to light, and for following the business casual rule. We appreciate that. Yeah, and don't forget to get your swag. So yeah, we're gonna now take a break for lunch. So lunch is available out there on the mezzanine. Go make yourself a plate, come back in. We'll get started back again with our keynote and to start a presentation of our winner of the Spark pitch competition. So we'll see y'all back here in a little bit. Thanks.